Welcome to episode 93 of the Girl About the Globe podcast. This week I'm interviewing co-founder of Heavnn to discuss the not so sexy topic of taxes. That if you're a digital nomad or thinking of becoming a remote worker and you have absolutely no idea how to set yourself up correctly for your taxes, then this episode is for you. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Girl About the Globe, a podcast for you, the solo female traveller, empowering women to travel solo with maximum adventure, minimum impact.
Welcome to a dose of inspiration for the solo female traveller. Today I'm joined by Stefan Gumbo, co-founder and CEO of Heavnn, to discuss taxes as a digital nomad. Stefan is originally from Guadeloupe and founded the company Heavnn to help solve the tax challenge for location-independent workers and remote-first companies. Hi, Stefan. Thank you for joining me today.
Hello, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Before we start on the topic of taxes, can you just briefly introduce yourself and tell us how you came up with the idea of Heavnn?
Yes. So, as you mentioned, I'm Stefan from the Caribbean, Guadeloupe. I studied taxation in the university as well as technology in general, IT for legal topics. I started to work in consulting, then for tax software, so basically software editor companies. And at some point while I was traveling, I realized that it was still difficult, besides the tax advisory services available, it was still difficult for location-dependent workers in general, so expats, digital nomads, nomads, cross-borders, to manage their taxes, either because they didn't know who to talk to, or just because the services were way too expensive when you have to pile the fees of 3 to 5 experts in different countries to manage your situation. So this is how basically, with my background both in taxes and in technology, that I started to think about the idea of solving the difficulty of navigating different tax systems with a technology solution that would allow an augmented tax lawyer, as we said. That means that to be able to use the tax knowledge of different countries very fast, thanks to technology, be able to compute the different information available for the different countries, so that the digital nomads could solve their cases. So once I had this idea, I started to work with a couple of different IT persons, software developers, AI specialists, etc., until we finally found the right recipe for Heavnn. And then I started the company with my co-founder.
Amazing, because you actually travel all around quite a lot, don't you? I know that you're in Bulgaria at the moment. So you created it for somebody like yourself, I'm presuming.
Yes, exactly. So the thing is, I started to travel during my studies. I studied in the University of Chicago as well, in the Northern Illinois University, and I started to discover traveling in that occasion, and I kept having missions advising as a tax consultant, advising expats from various countries while traveling myself. So at some point, indeed, when we started to work on the solution, I was working to help the people that I met all the time around a coffee, and then just asking me for my opinion about their tax situation and what solution they could have, but also to solve my own tax problems, let's say, because even as a tax advisor, it can be difficult to know exactly the tax law of each country, even if I worked with more than 50 countries. And besides that, this is even difficult to manage the paperwork. It's time consuming, especially when this is not something that when this is not your job. That means that even when you, as a tax advisor, when I was moving to a new country, I had specific missions for a new company, and having to manage that on the side was kind of tax consuming, on top of finding an apartment, on top of managing your social security and all new topics that you have when you relocate. So this is why, this is basically a software that could help me solve my own situation.
That's fantastic. Congratulations on company.
Thank you.
Since the pandemic, there seem to be now a lot of companies which are offering their employees the option to remote work. And obviously, that means they can probably work abroad. So, have you seen an increase in the amount of people using your services?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Basically, once we didn't start Heaven as Heaven exactly. Our first service was called Do Your Tax and was part of my previous
Mm.
company. We were helping expats managing their tax administration, their tax paperwork, wherever they are in the world, and this. Actually, the demand came from the audience directly. That means that we met with the digital nomad saying that this is so painful to have
Mm.
to manage this those tax residency questions, those multi-taxation questions, and I don't want to only to pay the bill at the end. Even if you help me reduce it a little bit, I would like to know before what to do, have a plan, and what I am going to do. So basically, we started to work on disorientation of the product because our audience pushed us to do that. As I explained, I knew that it was already difficult for the location dependent workers in general to manage their taxes globally, but then this is the request, the strong request really came from the digital nomads themselves contacting us on our website. When I was meeting with them in different countries, different meetups, just they kept asking, "Okay, you're a tax advisor. Can you help me plan everything and then manage the transition in terms of tax residency, etc." So the interest was already very strong from the population, from the community. It increased for sure during following the pandemic and the explosion of remote work. Yeah, this is definitely something that we observe because it totally changed our business model and our approach of our business.
That's really interesting, actually. I'm self-employed in the UK and I obviously travel a lot. I'm normally a digital nomad and I file my taxes every year, but to be honest, I'm not that clued up on taxes. So what happens if we don't get our tax correct?
Actually, many things can happen. So let's say that uh, first of all, something that is counterintuitive sometimes, and this is why we see some mistakes for or some like how can I say some plans, some bad ideas looking like good ideas, if I can say that, is because when you're not fully compliant with taxes, you don't immediately see the effect. There is always a delay between the bad action and the consequence.
Mm.
So what are the consequences? The consequence is the first consequence that you will see is basically that you get penalties on the taxes due. So if you don't pay your taxes the right way, if you don't do the correct paperwork, tax returns, or things like this, then you'll have to pay that later on when the tax administration will contact you to do so, and in case of audit, and you'll have to pay a penalty on top of it. The penalty can change depending on the country, but this is the first how can I say consequence when you don't have your taxes right. Um, the Besides that, depending on why don't you have your taxes right, you can also have criminal charges. That means that if, for example, you were just evading taxes, or you decided not to pay it and just leave the country while you had to pay taxes, or even set up a fake legal entity, or this kind of artificial schemes, you can even go to prison and get criminal charges for this. So this is
My
one.
goodness. Yeah.
This is to be said, but even if I think everyone is kind of used to that. This is the first part. The second part of the consequences is more from an international perspective. Not having your taxes right often means that you didn't do the correct analysis from a global perspective, and then you can have problems in terms of tax residency. This is something that we see often. That means that, for example, you consider that you were a tax resident somewhere and you file a tax return there, but actually you weren't tax resident in this country, but still in your home country, or vice versa. And at the end, you can end up being double tax plus penalties if you realize that a little bit too late. So this is important from a global perspective. So for location independence, to make sure that you're not double taxed at the end.
I've heard of that actually. I've got a friend who lives in Spain and she also works in England for a few months a year. And she was double taxed. And it was a bit of a headache for her because she didn't know how to kind of work out the Spanish tax and then the English tax. Obviously, the English tax was a lot easier, but the Spanish tax was all in Spanish. And it was just a bit of a headache for her. And I also heard of a famous travel blogger who, I think she was set up in Germany and she was hit with a massive tax bill in Germany. And I think it wiped out a lot of her savings. So it's like you're saying, it's so important, isn't it, to get the paperwork right and to really plan for what you need to pay for your taxes.
Exactly. Because you mentioned something interesting is that basically this tax debt wiped out her savings, and we know that for location dependent workers, the location dependent community in general, one goal or one opportunity is also to reach financial freedom. And many something that we see very often is that some people will start investing, basically growing their wealth by investing their money without actually planning their taxes. And at the end, what happens is that even if you make a little bit more money because you invested in a nice investment vehicle, at the end, if you have such tax problems, all your efforts can be done just after a single letter from the tax administration, or from multiple tax administrations. So this is definitely something to have in mind, especially when you think first just to keep your savings intact. But even if you start thinking about financial independence, financial freedom, and you want to build something, build wealth, the tax question is the very first one. Otherwise, it can destroy everything or almost everything that you try to build from a financial perspective.
Yeah, that's really good advice, actually. Something that I was trying to do before was putting 10% of what I was earning into different bank accounts. So, for example, a financial freedom account, because as you mentioned, as a remote worker or digital nomad, like, my goal is to become financially free. So I was putting 10% into that particular account. But you speaking to you now is just making me realize what I should also do is maybe put 10% into a tax account so that I know that I have allocated for money if something unexpected comes up with my tax.
Exactly, or even better would be to plan your taxes in advance, because the thing is, the problem that you can have, why tax problems can have such an impact on your finances, is because of the delayed effect that I thought about earlier. It's because once you're notified that there was a problem with your taxes, the amount that you'll have to pay to the tax administration will already be not multiplied, but you'll have to pay on top of it interest, penalties,
Wow.
and other fines. So this is what makes it a big amount that can wipe out your savings. Basically, with a right planning, taxes can become you can switch taxes from a risk to an opportunity.
What makes nomads different to those that are self-employed in their own countries?
The main difference is the fact that it's their mobility, their global mobility. When you're self-employed in one country, you're location dependent. That means that you have to play by the rules of this country, even if they are not optimal for you. So for in every countries you have some category of the population, some categories of the population that are how can I say, that can benefit from from specific tax rules. They won't pay a lot of taxes. They will have tax advantages, while other categories will have to pay a lot of taxes. This is the case of self-employed, even in the UK, and they won't have a solution to change that. What is the difference with a digital nomad? The difference with a digital nomad is that the digital nomad will have access to what we call tax law shopping and tax treaty shoppings. What does it mean? That means that you can, as a digital nomad, choose which country you want to be considered a tax resident in, even if there is I will have to do a quick precision about that. But you can basically choose which country to be considered a tax resident in, and you can choose this based on the way your business will be treated from a tax perspective, from a financial perspective. So this changes everything, because you're in one side as a self-employed in only one country and location dependent, because maybe your service can only be done in your neighborhood, or you don't have an activity that you can keep going remotely. So you're stuck in only one country, compared to digital nomads that have the opportunity to make this choice. What is the quick precision that I wanted to make is that I'm saying that a digital nomad can choose a tax residency. Actually, it's not that easy. There are criterion to be considered a tax resident somewhere, and this is actually a country that will at the end consider you as a tax resident based on their tax law, based on the tax law of the other country involved, and also based on the tax treaties involved. So this is not because you decide as a digital nomad to become a tax resident somewhere that you will be a tax resident there. There are still some criterions to verify. Some countries have a specific tax residency tests to make so that they can decide of your eligibility to be a tax resident there. So it's not as straightforward. This is just what I wanted to precise. But in general, to answer to your question, yes, when you're a digital nomad compared to a local self-employed, you definitely have more opportunities to optimize your taxes and choose the country that will treat you best from a tax perspective.
Does that also apply if you have a location independent company?
Yes, this applies as well for your company, even if there are some exceptions and some risks to take into account. But in general, your company, you can choose to have a location-dependent business and then incorporate your business more or less wherever you are, wherever you want, depending on the local regulation. It's not that easy to open a business in every country. Some countries like Estonia make it very easy. Some of the countries that can be interesting choices still make it harder to open a business there. So depending on the country that you choose for to incorporate your business and start a location independent business strategy, depending on this country, you'll have more or less efforts to make in order to get your incorporation. This incorporation concerns what we're talking about: business owners, not self-employed, that are both individuals and representing their business. We are talking about a separate legal entity, so is that is separate from the individual, even if there as well there are some exceptions, some specific rules, but we're talking globally. When you have your location independent business, this is separated from your personal situation. So that means that your business can
Okay.
be a tax resident in Germany while you are personally a resident in the UK. There is just one thing that is one information that is important to mention here is that depending on your setup between your personal situation and your business situation, there is a risk that is called the permanent establishment risk, when basically if actually while you incorporated your business in a certain country, you actually working how can I say, the real activity of the business is somewhere else. It can be
Mm.
in at your personal in the country where you're personally resident or anywhere else. Then you also have the risk to that one tax administration in the world considers tax a permanent establishment in this country, and therefore considers also a taxation there, which would lead to double taxation between the real tax residency of the business, or at least the tax residency on paper, and the permanent establishment that has been determined. But this is a little bit technical, just to mention, so that we don't think that you just need to incorporate a business somewhere,
Yeah.
and then that's it. You'll be tax resident there.
So I couldn't just set up a company in Dubai, which is known as being tax-free, and then still be self-employed from the UK, for example.
That would be possible as long as the activity of the business is well set up, and that you don't trigger any permanent establishment in the UK or somewhere else in the world.
Okay. It's so complicated, isn't it? That's why we need somebody like you to give us some advice. You mentioned before about Estonia, which I know is amazing for digital nomads, and there seem to be quite a few more countries now that are offering digital nomad visas. So are there any tax-friendly countries for nomads as well as Estonia that you can think of off the top of your head?
So actually, Estonia offers an interesting structure, but it really depends on the individual personal situation or particular situation, not only personal. When it comes to digital nomad visas, um, or even tax breaks in general around the world, it is very complicated to give a proper list, a top 10, as we say. This is at Heaven, we don't work exactly that way, and I will explain you why. Basically, at Heaven, when we do tax optimization, we don't only target the tax rates, we really work on the personal situation of the individual in order to find a country that will be tax friendly for this person specifically.
Right.
What does it
Okay.
mean? That means that for example, if you are an artist or if you are a soccer player, then you get most of your revenues from there. Then optimizing your taxes won't be only to move to some well-known location with a low tax rate, such as Malta, Cyprus.
Mm.
There are some locations, but basically to move to locations that offers the best tax breaks in your specific situation. For example, when you're an artist, that can be more interesting for you to move to Portugal or Spain because
Oh.
of the specific tax breaks that they offer to this population, compared to moving to another what we call tax haven, that would have just general tax reductions without being as interesting as the country is offering you targeted tax breaks on top of forcing you to basically go into an exile. That means that you'll have, in order to benefit from those tax haven, you'll have to leave everything and just exile yourself to a new country, compared to maybe analyzing the tax breaks in detail in the different countries that you're considering in your neighborhood or in your digital nomad journey. And that will allow you to ally both your tax advantages or global tax optimization and your lifestyle. So this is yes, this is basically so what the difference that we make. There are certainly countries that have the reputation of being interesting spots from a tax perspective for digital nomads, but at the end, the approach that we recommend, how we really consider tax optimization, is by analyzing the details of the different tax laws in order to identify what works best in your specific situation. And sometimes, last example I talked about Spain, we got clients paying 0% taxes in Spain and moving there because it's adapted to the local legislation is adapted to their situation, while other of our clients leave Spain because they pay more than 40% taxes there and they need to go somewhere else. So it really depends on one's particular situation, and it is important to do this analysis so that you can save both taxes and your lifestyle.
Okay. Is it possible then to have no tax residency?
Actually, this is something that we often hear. Is We are talking about the perpetual traveler that would travel all around the world and without never having a tax residency. The thing is, this is rarely possible, and this is very dangerous to believe that. I will explain a little bit why this is difficult, and then I'll explain why it's dangerous. So basically, something that is important to know is that many people think that the general rule for tax residency that people know, even if there are plenty of others, is the 183 day. And basically, the reasoning behind being a perpetual traveler is basically to travel perpetually, permanently, without triggering a tax residency in any of the countries that you visit, because you would always be below the 183-day rule. To understand this rule, what we need to know is that this rule is designed to solve a problem between states, and not a problem because of the individuals. What I mean by a problem between the states in general are in a competition. They are in a competition for what we call the global tax base. What that does it mean is that we have plenty of people on this planet having money, and the goal for the states will be to determine where those people will pay their taxes. This is why there is this concept of tax residency. Is basically one state is going to say, you're a tax resident in my country, so you will pay tax. So you pay taxes there, and no other state has the right to tax you because you already paid taxes there. Once we understand that, and then that the 183-day rule, among other rules, is there in order to attribute the taxation to one state and protect then the individual from being taxed by multiple states, we understand better what is the problem with the myth of the perpetual traveler. When you're a perpetual traveler, that means that you never establish tax residency anywhere, which basically means that you can also be a tax resident everywhere. That is, that as long as there is
Okay.
no state to say that there is no state to say that he is a tax resident there, so he has to pay taxes. That means that any state you had a minimal relationship with can say that you are a tax resident there. For example, if you leave the UK and then you keep traveling all over the world, this is possible that at some point when you come back, this is what we call the welcome back tax. You get asked, where did you pay taxes? Did you pay taxes in the last years? And if not, that means
Interesting.
that exactly, that means that no state claimed that you were a tax resident, so you're not protected from the UK actually claiming taxes against you. So this is the big risk, and we arrive to the risk part. What happens most very often to perpetual traveler is that indeed they won't pay taxes for a few years, even 5 years, because the consequences of tax non-compliance is always delayed. But as soon as they will decide to stop somewhere, to become a tax resident somewhere, or just they decide to have to build a life in one country in particular, then this country may ask them for information about their previous taxation, and if they don't have they didn't have a tax residency before, this country can decide that they will be actually um, okay, they will actually tax the revenues of the past 5 years if they had already a relationship with this individual before. And even if you decide to do so as a perpetual traveler in a completely new country, still some of the countries that you visited or your home country or basically can claim at some point that you owe them taxes. So this myth of the perpetual traveler is very dangerous, in the sense that it will then depends on if a tax administration, even your local tax administration, decides to audit you or not. You are absolutely not protected because you're not capable of showing that you've been a tax resident somewhere, or either you paid taxes somewhere else, or you benefit from tax breaks in another country, and then but this country still considered you as a tax resident and decided that you won't pay taxes. So this is yeah, I've been explaining like that for a bit of time, but basically the idea is that the perpetual traveler is absolutely not protected unless there is a solid tax plan behind that. But this is absolutely not something that one can do just by breaking tax residency with one country, because once it's never sure that you broke tax residency with a country, and this is dangerous not to have another tax residency. In general, what we recommend is to choose your tax residency with a low or even zero taxation, instead of basically leaving the doubt, and at some point maybe you can have at least a dispute with a state that you can maybe fight back or challenge, or even tax penalties to pay, and then taxes to pay back in the on the last 5 years, which can also ruin your efforts to your savings and etc. Basically, your financial situation.
Does that mean then that we can have a different business tax residency to our personal tax residency? I think you kind of covered that a bit before.
Yes. So you can absolutely have a business tax residency. That means that the revenues out of your professional activity will be taxed in one country, while you'll be taxed at a personal level in another country. This needs to be set up the right way, because this can because there is the risk of permanent establishment that we talked about. So this is very important to have that correctly set up. But otherwise, once you make sure that you won't trigger any permanent establishment risk in another country, you can have your business settled somewhere and tax resident somewhere, while you being taxed somewhere else. This is absolutely possible.
And also, since Brexit, obviously, for us Brits trying to stay in Europe, we can only stay there for 90 days out of every 180 days, which is the same as North American residents, I think, from the USA and also from Canada. So, is it possible for us to be able to set up a business account in Europe? And does that then mean that we can stay longer than the allocated 90 days every 6 months?
This actually depends because basically, yes, following the Brexit, as a UK national, you will now need to get a visa in order to stay in the Schengen area. But the visa conditions depends on each of the countries in the Schengen area. So just to precise, as at Heavnn, we are not specialists of the immigration question. Even if you're right, it has an impact on the your business setup and your global remote setup in general. But this is something to be managed separately from your taxes. It's not only a quick small tax question, but basically some countries, for example Germany, will ask you in order to allocate a visa, they will ask you to prove that you have resources to sustain yourself if you immigrate to their country. So having your company set up there will help you basically to prove that, and will help you to get this visa and therefore to stay longer in the Schengen area. So this is still correlated to the immigration part. That means getting your visa. It's harder depending on the country. Some countries offer digital nomad visas, for example, that makes that easier. This is the case of Estonia. That makes it easier, even as a UK national, to move there and and basically get a visa. Um, but for some of the countries I was mentioning, Germany, you'll have to prove that you have an activity and that you're able to sustain yourself. And in that sense, having your business there can help you stay more than the 90 days that are allowed in the Schengen area without a visa.
Okay, so it really does depend on the country as well and the individual. One
Exactly.
one thing I've always been a bit confused about, because obviously I'm self-employed in the UK, but I get paid in euros or in dollars, depending on which brand or which company I'm working with and where they're set up. How do we decide what currency we get paid by? And is it worth opening different bank accounts for different currencies? Or is the best practice to request payment in the currency of the country that we're registered in?
It's difficult to answer this question in with a unique answer, because it depends also on where are your how can I say, where are your clients based, and also your negotiation with them. In general, without taking edge cases, it's better to do business in the currency of your country of residence, the country where your business is located. That will prevent you from having complicated accounting operations to manage, including change gains and this kind of operations that needs to be reported in your accounting. So in general, to avoid this additional accounting operations, I would recommend to do business in the currency of your country of localization. However, this can vary depending mainly on your negotiation with the client or external other economic circumstances. I won't go too much into details because this is also a topic that is a whole topic by itself. But what I would recommend from a pure accounting and also tax perspective, because you need to remember that the gain, so change losses are also deductible, but change gains are also taxable. So that means that there is also a complication in how you'll do your compliance, and that can be an additional tax risk. So if it's not absolutely necessary. I would recommend to remain with the currency of your current country, the country of your business activity.
Okay, that's really good advice. Thank you. And when do you recommend is the best time for us to start thinking about our taxes?
As soon as possible. This is the sooner is always the better, because let's say that even I we get this question kind of often, and it can be, even if this is the end of the year, it's never too late to save some taxes. You can take some actions, and if it's not, you won't be able to act in terms of tax residency as a digital nomad, but you'll still be able to start structuring your activity in a certain way that you can still reduce a little bit your taxes. And the second part is a setup needs time to be fully working, so fully in force. You need time to first do the analysis of your situation, decide what you're going to do exactly, what global remote setup will you implement, and afterwards to implement this scenario. If this is if you we're talking about digital nomads who wants to have a location dependent setup, they will need time to
Yeah,
implement, to create, for example, or the activity in one country, or to register their activity in one country. Same as moving tax residency. This is also a process that takes time, because it's not just about taking your laptop and moving to a new country.
yeah.
There are particular precautions and measures to take, steps to take. So I would say the sooner is the better. The worst case scenario, you will only save a bit of taxes in the current tax year, and you will completely save your next tax year. Best scenario, you'll save both. But it's always better to start a little bit earlier on time than being late and actually have an hybrid tax year where you'll be half compliant or half optimized. I wouldn't recommend to add complexity. It would be better to, before starting your digital nomad journey, even if you also learn on the go on your activity, on what you want to do, where you want to travel exactly, because being a digital nomad is a journey. But still, having a setup already in place when you leave, when you start a journey, is the best, how can I say, the best approach to be smart with your taxes, your global taxation as a digital nomad.
Thank you. And you've invented, obviously, your own technology in AI. So can you tell us a bit more about that? And your technology also helps us to optimize our taxes, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. So indeed, as I mentioned earlier in the discussion, the what's difficult for digital nomads or location dependents in general is to navigate between multiple tax systems. Today, the service offering would be to contact multiple tax experts and have those tax experts analyze your situation, each of them from their particular perspective from a particular country. This is something that is very costly. We have prices starting at 30K, and then that can be even more, 30K euros, and that can
Wow, that's a
be
lot.
even more.
Yeah.
So basically, the idea behind our technology was to use artificial intelligence to gather this data in advance, regarding more than 85 countries at the moment, so that digital nomads can use our technology in order to identify the existing tax breaks for each country and design their best scenario. So our main, on top of, without being too technical, our goal are really has been to basically collect, verify with experts and also our internal team, because I mentioned that I've been a tax expert myself, and we worked in collaboration with other tax experts to collect, verify the data, and test the software in order to develop this AI that at the end will allow digital nomads to have access to a tax expertise that is way cheaper than what you will have by consulting separately different experts. It doesn't mean that our software replace an expert if you have a particular problem. Let's say if you have a tax litigation with the tax administration, or you have very precise problems in taxation that you want to solve, then an expert will still be of good help, definitely. What our software does is really helping you with the global remote setup by analyzing all those tax laws at once, and with the support of our team to help you design what will be the best remote setup for you.
Fantastic. And what type of nationalities do you use your services? And can you just tell us a bit about the process?
We have clients a little bit from everywhere. When we started, the majority of our clients were coming from the US, and I'm not sure that I can tell you why, because probably because they have this double, this permanent double taxation problem,
Yeah.
and the tax question is really sensitive for them when they are digital nomads. But more and more, we see clients from everywhere. We have clients from South America, from the UK, from a little bit everywhere in Europe, even from Asia. Our clients are basically coming from everywhere. We start to see more and more clients from Europe at the moment. All our segments do not develop at the same pace. So the first important population were definitely the Americans from the US, and right now we see more and more people from mainly Portugal, the UK, Germany, France, or countries
Oh,
with
okay.
high taxation. Yes, exactly, joining our platform. But in general, we have people from anywhere. Last clients that I saw were from Australia, Ali,
Over the globe.
anywhere in the world.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to add that you think that we should know about taxes or the services that you provide?
Yeah, so basically, if I can add something, is
Yeah.
tax optimization is great and is important for digital nomads. But something that often people overlook and that is very important is that tax optimization doesn't go alone. For digital nomads, the very first step to take is to design your global remote setup. Basically, how am I going to work from wherever? Legally, without having to pay fines or have
Mm.
risk of double taxation at some point. The first question is this: whether you insisted on that on the business part, where should I be registered? Where can I separate my business and my personal situation? This is important to have that figured out as a first step. And second step is the global tax optimization. Once we know that we have the right setup, then we can start designing a tax strategy. This is those two things need to go together, because often we see clients coming to us with just a tax request, and they already started traveling, and they just want to optimize their taxes, knowing where they should move to which country they should move to, without taking into account that you need a setup to back that up.
Yeah.
You cannot, as a digital nomad, just take your laptop and start working from another country. This will lead you to some problems that can be not only tax problems, but even just local compliance problems,
Okay.
and even problems with your company if you're an employee.
So it's really, really important to think about what kind of business, where you want to set up your business, and then come to you to help optimize your taxes.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Stefan. Thank you for joining me today and just really helping me understand the whole tax system a bit more. So I'm hoping that this is going to help other digital nomads out there. And where can people find you if they want to find out more about your services?
Oh, yes. So we have our website. This is heavnn.io, heaven with double N at the end. So you can directly contact our team there, either book a free tool so that our team can explain you what is exactly the product and how it can help with your situation. But if you listen to this podcast and you see exactly how we can help you, then you can just start your digital interview online that will allow us to collect information and better understand your situation. And right away, you'll have a one-to-one call with one of our experts to dig a little bit deeper into your situation and start working on your global remote setup and tax optimization, because remember that the two go together.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining me today, Stefan, and I wish you every success in the future.
Thank you, Lisa, for your invitation. It was a pleasure. Talk to you soon.
And you can find out exactly how much you can save in taxes on the Digital Nomad tax article on the Girl About the Globe blog. Plus, there's a special code to save 5% off your tax service too. See you next week.
Thanks for listening to our Girl About the Globe podcast, making solo travel easier for you. Find everything that you need for your solo travels at girlabouttheglobe.com, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.